Welcome back, everyone. We officially have our top 8 that you can see over there for Fright Night number 10. Now, I want to take a look at some of the games, and we're going to follow Shadowforce through their Swiss rounds and see what we can learn from our rank number 1 player after all of the Swiss rounds. Now, before we get into everything, I, of course, have to let everybody know that I am part of the content affiliate program. That means that the Phobies team does, in fact, give me in-game coffee for producing Phobies content, and they're providing the prizes for Fright Night number 10. So just wanted to let you know as we get into everything. But speaking as such, let's get into it. All right, round 1 of Fright Night number 10 with Shadowforce versus Smileyyyy. Here on the Pyro Abyss, we watch these games out of order on stream. So if you're interested in looking at some games live, whether it's me playing or we're breaking stuff down, check out the live stream, link for that in the description. But this was, in my opinion, the closest game against Shadowforce out of all the rounds. Round 4 had some weird stuff going on that you can make an argument that maybe that one was a closer game than this one, but I'm not 100% sold on that particular argument. But this one definitely had some unique stuff, and if you aren't aware, you're about to learn. You'll learn today. We do, in fact, see a little unicorn action, a little snowballage for both players. We've been seeing a lot of stabbies or other turrets on this map in the other games. I don't know if I don't mind it. I'm not super sold. I know I was doing it myself last night, but we, of course, get the turn 3 boss. Turn 3. You know what would be an interesting boss change, chat? What if they made it 9 keys? By the way, it's a big old doughboy. Yeah, that's how I would feel if I saw a boss at the table. That's about how I would react. With this adorable little cape, Dozer. Let's see what happens right now. Honestly, like I said, I'm going to repeat myself, but I feel that this Dozer actually wasn't bad over the course of the game. But we, of course, get Boss Gonzo. We might as well show this so people can tell. So 3k health, 2120. 575 damage. Like, this Dozer is pretty damn tanky, obviously, right? We're getting the 1 key exchanges. I guess this is fine. It does allow for continually freeing up composition space, which it's funny because we usually make the argument, don't just trade your 1 keys. It's pointless. You're just sending keys down the drain. But there is an advantage to it because we've seen many games where people get locked into comps that they don't really want because they're maxed out. Boom. The boss man and the sheep. So right now, this looks fairly good for Shadowforce, I'm not going to lie. Down goes Stabby, specifically to fire. Feels rough. Remind you of an old Fright Night event where Smileyyyy was using Dozer facing down Shadowforce's boss. Yeah. History repeats itself. Let's see if it works out any better for Smileyyyy this time. Spoiler alert, I know the answer. You should know the answer too. So this is actually a cool play. This is a really cool play. The only thing I think I would have liked to have seen different is puke differently. Like, you'd lose the Gravedigger, but I think you're losing the Gravedigger no matter what. I think if you puke here, you save these two. I guess that there's the argument that they're just going to kill the spider almost trivially. Why not mud on Dozer? Oh yeah, that'll actually get all three. This point is that this is not a good puke. It's not a good puke. But yes, you could have hit Dozer and that would have saved these three while still cooking this. Now we'll see a couple turns from now how much health the boss has. So this is one set of fire. Gravedigger goes down. Obviously, sheep is going to go down. Or spider, rather. Two fire hits. So right now, this boss should be at 1200. It would have changed things. Like, there might have been other plays available to Smileyyyy if the fire was there. But, obviously, the boss dies anyway. Now, 10 keys remaining to 13. Smileyyy's obviously not out of the woods yet. You unfortunately need some additional damage to finish off the sheep. And clearly you want to heal the Dozer. Inoculus comes in to clean it up, and, like, look at this board position. This absolutely seems playable. This is playable board position. You can win the game as either player. Now, admittedly, Smileyyyy is down. Panic points. The board is somewhat even. There's traps, though. You're going to lose stuff, and Shadowforce has more keys. Like, Shadowforce is in the driver's seat. Don't get me wrong. But, like, Dozer seem reasonable. However, the honey bear is really, I think, the key focus here. The major takeaway. Since we've been harping on the boss idea. Now, I don't quite get the erratic here, and I kind of do. You can juice it and then splash and really hurt this thing. I don't think you can kill it, right? I don't think so. One of the big challenges here is you don't really have a good way to kill this. You know, obviously, droney, but this... I don't mind doing this, but it doesn't feel good when you do. You don't like doing this. I think this dies to the counter snowball also. Obviously, droney was not long for this world. And the bigger challenge with this sequence of plays is while you were able to snipe the daisy, technically key positive, Shadowforce just has more keys. And has had more keys to be able to invest in additional follow-up. So you have to find a way to claim these panic points back and not just get bullied away. Now, this does certainly help out. This is additional pressure onto Shadowforce, and obviously there wasn't a huge amount of heart pressure, so maybe you could have even avoided this. There's an argument that maybe you instead go with a 3-key instead of the cat. But I think 2-1 is probably fine. And this is... I mentioned it when we were looking at one of the other games, but one of the more interesting things that I think people want out of Phobies is you get play, counterplay. Play, counterplay. We saw Boss and Gonzo. We got Honey Bear and Dozer. Well, Dozer's still on the board. There's also multiple other one-movers. A couple of other one-movers. We get Dial. And something getting dialed here is really going to cripple Smiley's offense. And defense, for that matter. So the last two keys go into Creep. I'm not a huge fan of that. I don't know what 2 key I would want. I get the Creep. You try and poison the Erratic. The problem is when you do that, the Creep is just going to die. It is another ranged phobie, but I feel like you'd rather just have Cassowary, probably. Trying to think. I'm not sure what else I'd want, but I would imagine Cassowary. Now, Dial's ability, Stay Tuned, is a 2 range, even though it's a melee phobie. So, like, if it went here, it could target the Innocuous. This is 700, which would be enough to be lethal. You could also snipe it with Gonzo Innocuous, hence the big retreat. But since Smiley never got a Terraform online, which I don't know if there really was a good opportunity to, but a Terraform here could have been valuable to try and, you know, threaten the Dozer getting back into the fray much more quickly. As it is, it's either going to take 100 years to come around this way, or at least several decades to go this way. Now, both players are out of keys, so the Panic Point trading war could go in favor of Smileyy if Shadowforce overextends. Unfortunately, just a quick snipe here. This just, like, why did that even happen? There's no way for Smileyy to punish this once this is dead. So this just kind of... I think it's just a mistake. Like, Smileyy just made an error and is like, oh, well, they're not going to come after me. But they can, and they can do it safely. And at this point, now you're down bodies quantity-wise. And you're down bodies as far as, well, you're going to be down action-wise shortly. Because the Dial can just turn something off. Yeah, that big ol' hit onto Erratic. Unfortunately, not sufficient. And not quite enough damage to take down the Innocuous. If there was a counter hit viable here, maybe. But yeah, there were some, it's interesting. We had what I would clarify or classify as the best defense that we saw in this course of games, and feel free to disagree with me, chat, or YouTube for that matter. The best sequence of defensive plays against Boss Gonzo, and one of, if not the best playable position post Boss Gonzo with Smiley's setup, but a few minor mistakes really just led to the demise. It, you know, even if this creep was alive, all of a sudden this thing is dead and then there's just way less damage. I mean, you're still going to snipe these if you juice it, but then there's just... you have more stuff. I think there were other plays in this game that could have been cleaned up, but I think that was arguably the best defense that we saw against Boss Gonzo. And it wasn't quite enough. It was definitely very cool, definitely very interesting, but it wasn't quite enough to put it over the top. I don't know, chat. I really do feel like that was... it was certainly the most interesting. Hey, Ryuk, what's good? You think so too, that it was the best defense? I really think that it looked good. Smileyy made it look good. Unfortunately, Shadowforce is just a little too good. Maybe Boss Gonzo is, I don't know. Combination of the two. I don't want to take anything away from Shadowforce. It's not like Shadowforce is a bad player or something. But yeah, I don't know what... I like the Honey Bear idea, and we saw it help out throughout multiple games. It wasn't just that game. Like, there were multiple games where Honey Bear definitely made... Honey Bear made a difference. Honey Bear made an impact. The Dozer... I don't know what Smileyyy's collection is. I mean, Dozer's the tankiest and highest damage. I feel like Smileyyyy had the advantage when boss died, but lost it later on. Yeah. I think that's why I said, like, the creep play wasn't the deciding factor. The loss of creep, I mean. That wasn't the deciding factor, but it was a microcosm of the minor misplays. That it's just, hey, this guy has a little bit too much damage because I overextended it. So then that means that Shadowforce can push because I have to either retreat or reposition. Shadowforce also made a great heads-up play with the Dial. The Dial was a great answer. It's like, hey, they have 3 1-movers. If I connect with any of them with Dial, I'm probably in great shape. Obviously, there's a preference for which one to connect with, but dialing up any of those is going to cause a serious issue. It obviously halves their damage at the very least, or causes a full retreat. So I think it was a good counter pick from Shadowforce late in the game. There was nothing Smileyyyy could do at that stage. But I absolutely agree that that one kind of slipped through Smileyyy's fingers. And when I was watching it live, I legitimately thought when the boss died and that whole skirmish, the dust settled, I thought it was Smileyyy's game. I thought it was Smileyyy's game, despite the key disadvantage. It definitely felt like Smileyyyy could take it. It was very interesting that the erratic came down, in my opinion. Yeah, Dial felt clutch, forcing Dozer to back away. Yep. The Dial pretty much locked the game. I don't think there was anything that could be done at that point. Could Dozer not go to stim and tank, even being Dial, since it's kind of hard to get everything to Dozer? Inoculus defending from his side. I think towards the end of that game, what would have ended up happening is Shadowforce just takes one of the panic points and then the game ends. Because then Smileyyyy would never... We're going back into the game. We can look at the board state. I think that... I think Shadowforce could reclaim one of those spots and then the game pretty much ends. Now, admittedly, there's a lot of time on the clock. There's a lot of time on the clock because they're not the game. I don't know how much time is left in the round, but like, there's a lot of heart health left. So I think this is where it walks up and pokes here because it's safe. So this is why the creep was damaged. This felt like it was just an error. Like, why? The creep didn't need to be here. The creep could have been here. And it doesn't make a... I mean, it makes a difference, but not a meaningful difference. Like, you're not jumping this Inoculus. It's never going to overextend far enough. So, the argument, I think what Kuros is saying is, like, basically, why not just sit in this position? And I did mention that, like, if Shadowforce goes in and claims this with a cat, this cat will eventually reclaim. It'll take some time, but you can do that. So if the creep lived, if the creep was here when Dial first came out, well, that was basically when it first came out. I guess it was a couple turns. No, it was more turns than that. I guess it was on the board for a while. Dozer could have been in the middle there, too, instead of retreating to the stim. What, like, stayed on the panic point? So you're saying maintain this position? The problem is, if Dozer gets hit with Dial, Dozer is arguably useless. Move south instead of west. All right, hold on, chat. I'm having trouble visualizing this, so we're going to do the thing. All right, so you're saying move south instead of west. So Smileyy actually moves here, but you're suggesting just move here with the dozer? Or are you saying shift it to where the honey bear is? Because if you put it there, so like let's say you leave it in this spot, couldn't dozer to go to the honey bear position? That's where we're debating right now, Rocket. So like you can go here, or you can go here. Neither are going to be able to reach this, but they will continue, obviously, pushing the dozer somewhere. I think the problem with going to this point, or potential problem, is, let's say, so dozer goes here. Dial goes here. And Dial has how much health? Dial has 950 health. You are not in range to actually threaten the Dial if it goes the stim. And we're operating under the assumption that if you dial the dozer, it's effectively out of the game. That would mean that either you have to push with as Smileyy and hope that they don't kill your dozer, which is not very likely at this point, especially if they dial it. So that means what? You retreat back to here? In which case now the cat can reclaim the point safely. Like there's no way to kill it. So it'll retreat, and now you are behind as Smileyy on the panic point race. Now the other option is just completely retreat. Like basically you defend from here onto here forever, essentially. Like you just wait. And you just honey bear over and over again because you'll be well out of range. At this point in time, it's 6,400 to 5,600. Smiley's ahead in the panic point race. There's an argument that you just honey bear a panic point over and over again. And it could be either one. It could be this one. It could be this one if they take it. You know, like you set up so that you kill the cat, right? They come in with the cat at some point. You kill it. You send your cat in, or don't. It doesn't matter. And then you just keep turning off panic points until they extend to a point where you think you can kill something. The problem is I just don't think you'll ever do it because you'll probably get 1, 2, 3 attacks on something. And that's just not going to be enough. 575 on dozer, so 875 with the honey bear, and then another 4. That's 1275. You're just literally you can kill the Inoculus, which you'll never get, and you'll be 25 damage short on killing the Gonzo. And then there's still Dial. I mean, I guess you could kill Dial. Hmm. I mean, I really think losing the creep was a big deal just because it's another body that does something. I'm not sold that creep is the phobie that it should have been. I don't really know. I think cassowary would have been better, but it's just having another body so that you can threaten things or reclaim points or whatever. But I think the long game is the way to take this. The problem is I don't like dozer up here. I think the problem with having dozer up here and on this panic point is that, like, again, it takes 1, 2, 3, 4, probably 5 turns to get into range. And you can't, as we saw, come back this way because if you do, you're going to get dialed. But yeah, as far as this, I don't know. It definitely felt like Smileyy had a good chance. However, like I wonder if this turn also So this is the turn where we get the Honey Bear. We get Honey Bear, boom, AWOL. There's the potential here that... So, as many people pointed out, you puke here with the Honey Bear. Because then you save this spot, and this spot. But you continue to get boss cooked when it gets pulled in. The thing is how much does that change everything? Because I think we said it was 2 turns of... Yeah, this is the turn where it dies. 2 turns of damage. So another 400. So it'd be 1290. You actually kill it with this, and this. Hitting this, which means that Dozer can hit this twice. I don't know that you save much here. You only have 5 keys. Snowball is down. The point is, I don't think there's anything else you can kill as Smileyy, that you can kill anything else this turn. And if you can't, then... Yes, it was a worse play, but not meaningfully worse. You know, like, it was a bad play, but it had no bearing on the outcome of the game. The only way that it changes is if you are, like, you can kill the sheep without involving the Dozer, which I don't know how that's possible. Because if you can do that, that means that you are then able to move Dozer and get a hit on something. But if you advance, you have 1700. You'd obviously have to muffin first. So how much does this end up with? 2250. So it'd be 4, 8, 12, 16, 19. This would live. So if you were able to engineer a way where you kill both of these without using Dozer, which again, I don't think that's possible, the Dozer can then either kill this or soften up one of these, and it would live. You probably just kill this. Don't you get another turn of fire at the end of his turn, then it disappears? Yes? No. So, like, this is the last turn of fire. Unless that's what you meant. Like, you get a turn of fire at the end of Smiley's turn. So there's an extra 200 there. But I don't see how... So, like, if we assume 600 damage, so you're at 1,000. 500. Wait, this is 550. So 9. So then that becomes your 1290. Or your 1090, rather. Because we're saying 600 damage from the fire. So 550, 9, so it's 1025. So you still need a little bit more damage. Something else has to hit this. It could die to the fire, which means that something isn't taking the damage, the dimensional damage. But that still leaves this untouched, other than from the boom. So the one play that I kind of sided with chat would be better to do it this way, where you... I was siding with chat that it would be better to puke here, because then you get these 3. However, What if you did what I originally said and you puke like here? So you get Dozer, you get Spider, you do not get Gravedigger. Because hypothetically, Shadowforce is going to do this same sequence of plays. Maybe they don't in that scenario because they kill Gravedigger and walk away. But if they commit here, that means that this took 400 or 600 damage. I don't know if that materially changes this. Like, it's possible that by allowing your own Gravedigger to cook, you cook their sheep, and after the lamb chops, you then can advance Dozer. We're dealing with a lot of hypotheticals here. I feel like we're kind of just making shit up because I don't know what Smileyyy's collection is, but I presume we have to assume certain things. I think Smileyyy's been playing long enough that they probably have a wide enough collection to have a lot of options. Like Jar and Cassowary, for example, would be able to reach both of these, but are either of them significant enough to make a difference? It's possible with the boss, you could let it die to fire if you poke it with a jar. You know, like if it got cooked for 3 turns. Oh, this would be the 3rd turn. You hit it with jar, you hit it with this, you hit it with this, and I think that's enough to kill it. Then that means this is at 1,000. This would be 700. This would be at 375 for 40 minutes. This would be at 375 if it was a Cassowary. Is there anything that can do 700 damage that could hit sheep out of the vault? Certainly not for 2 keys, right? Certainly not for 2 keys. At least I don't think so. Well, yeah, Morty could do it, but like... I mean, well, would Morty work if you... So, alright, we're making all the same assumptions. Make all the same assumptions here. So we said 1090. Was there? I don't think that works. Unless... So we do still have Snowball as an option. Like, Snowball didn't have to retreat. Snowball could go in. That changes the end of the game. I mean, all of this would have changed it, but, like, a lot of things change. There might have been a turn here where you can kill these 3. To be honest, I lost track of hypotheticals at this point. I just heard 700 from the vault and thought I know that phobia. That's fair. Must have heard my wife's phone ringing or something. I heard a weird buzzing. Yeah, I'm not sure here. I feel like there's a turn where you can get all 3 of these, but that's a lot of quick math that I think most people are just going to assume, like, oh no, I probably can't do this. That being said, Smileyyyy was preparing for something because they knew due to the boom. I mean, maybe you can't do it. Maybe it can't be done, but I feel like there might be a turn where you get boss, sheep, and Snowball. You probably lose your Snowball in the process, but I don't think they can kill Dozer. Actually, no, they would kill Dozer because you'd only have 4 keys, technically, because you would need 1 to muffin. So Dozer would have 1200 health. It 100% dies if it goes in, if you don't heal. So you only have 4 keys to make this happen. So maybe it's not possible. Maybe it's not possible, chat.